מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Oh, and also, Chag Sameach, by the way. This morning, my son woke me up and said, Chag Sameach. I said, what do you mean, Chag Sameach? Yeah, today, he said to me, it's Hey Ve'ir. It's Yom Ha'atzmaut. Actually, today is Yom Ha'atzmaut. But then I forgot that when Yom Ha'atzmaut falls on Shabbat, gets celebrated before. It gets moved to Thursday. So there will be no problems with the celebrations. If you do it on Friday, then you cannot clean up after, right? It's very interesting. So it was moved, and he was right. Today it's Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's another way. So we have to remember. We have to remember this special day, even though we have to move it to an earlier day out of convenience. But what a blessing it is to have the state of Israel with us. It's a wonderful privilege and blessing of this generation that previous generations did not have. And I hope you had the opportunity to celebrate with the Winnipeg community. We have different celebrations of Yom Ha'atzmaut, including one beautiful concert that was streamed on the Jewish Federation's Facebook page. So if you didn't watch that concert, don't miss it. There were some people that I didn't know because I was the one editing it, putting it all together. So there were a couple of singers that I never heard before, and they were great. Whew. So don't miss it. You have an opportunity. But my point is, this is a reminder on how mindful we have to be of all the blessings that we have around. We should never skip an opportunity to celebrate a blessing, because it's not every day that we are aware of a specific blessing that we have in our lives or in our generation. This is a perfect one to remember, which is the blessing of the state of Israel. This is also, as I say, a reminder that we have to be aware of all the blessings that we have. And that's how we start every service, by the way. But before that, welcome to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for inviting us into your homes. And we also welcome the few lucky ones who are here in the sanctuary.
The lucky ones.
The lucky ones.
Well, I consider myself lucky, yeah, sure.
You get to see me in person. We welcome Rabbi Matthew Leibel.
Thanks, Rabbi. Great to be here. Shabbat Shalom, and I guess Chag Sameach. Though I'm not entirely sure. If you move Yom Ha'atzmaut, I'm not sure today is a Chag. We're gonna have to unpack that Talmudic style later.
Well, it didn't. The Yom Ha'atzmaut didn't exist at the time of the Talmud.
That's true. So, Talmudic style.
So I'm telling you that so you won't waste time going to the Talmud trying to find it.
If you move Yom Ha'atzmaut because of Shabbat to the 3rd of ER, is the 5th of ER still a Chag?
I will say still a special moment.
Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, Shabbat on its own special moment.
Of
So
course.
I'm thrilled to be here. It's great.
But welcome, Bill Weisman.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Welcome, Leslie Emery.
Shabbat Shalom.
And the one and only, Marvin Polanski, our audiovisual director, in the corner of the sanctuary, making us look good and sound amazing. So, let's begin with our service. Counting our blessings with the morning blessings. The Birkot HaShachar, page 5, please rise. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natah la'aseh min alav chimeni b'layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani betzalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorihim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Israel.
Amen.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrihim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim.
Amen.
Together. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Page 6. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, roka haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamaychi mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Israel v'gevuna.
Amen.
Together. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Israel v'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anotel layaev kohach.
Amen.
One more time. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. And please Please remain standing. Page 7, Baruch She'amar. Baruch She'amar ve'aya olam. Baruch Hu. Baruch Oseh Bereshit. Baruch Omer ve'oseh. Baruch Ozer u'mekayem. Baruch merachem al haaretz. Baruch merachem al haberiot. Baruch meshalem sachar tov lir'av. Baruch al-ahad ve'kayam lanetzach. Baruch odeh u'matzil. Baruch shemo. Lai lai la 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 lai 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 la lai la 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 lai lai la lai la 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 lai la lai la 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 lai la la lai la la lai la la lai lai la la lai la la lai la 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 lai la la lai la la lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai la la lai la 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 lai la lai la 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 lai lai la lai lai lai. And you may be seated as we continue on page 8, Psalm 150. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. El vekocho. Hallelujah. Birkia uzo. Hallelujah. Bigurota. Hallelujah, Kerov Gudlo. Hallelujah, Veteka Shofar. Hallelujah, Venevel Vechinor. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, betofu makol. Hallelujah, beminim veugav. Hallelujah, betzil tzele shama. Hallelujah, betzil tzele trua. Kol shama te hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I would like to invite everyone to rise now as we turn to page 46, so we can recite together the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal ve'yitgadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Velmad yiverach ilutei ve'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Israel. Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv ve'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehe shemei Rabba mevorach le'alam u'le'amei maya. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה נמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום עם רומאיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו.
Amen.
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 You may be seated, but before we return to page 10, why don't we make a little break on the service to see who is in the chat? Because it took me forever to open the chat today, and I missed all the first messages.
We have a wonderful
Leslie,
group
I rely
of
on
people.
you to know who is there.
Well, I've been looking. I've been watching everyone arrive this morning. It's so good to see you all. And thank you so much for taking the time to say hello and let us know who you are and that you're here. Shabbat Shalom to Bonnie Robinson, Alain Renaud, Tina Gillich, Zelda Elkin, Alice Wiseman, Sandy Polanski, Marilyn Pearl, Terry, Melanie Richters, and Ryan and Sarah. Good Shabbos to you. Shabbat Shalom to David Wilder, Murray and Sharon Nazen, Jerome Foman, Rocky Pollock, Gloria and Israel bin Noon, Alina Lashev and Fanny. Good to see you all this morning. Evelyn Hecht, Hannon Bell, Ian Rabb, Harry and Rhonda Ewell, Sarah B., Louis and Deb Stern, Stephen Cantor, Clyde Hertig and Karen. We have such a lovely group here. Dr. Debbie Pollock, Lawrence Fleischer and Glory, Jackie Sipe, Earl Barish, Valerie Ring, and Rochelle Pinkovich, and Sharon Walder. Good Shabbos to you all, and welcome to Share Zedek.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie. So let's continue now. Page 10, second paragraph. Shochenat Marom. Shochenat Marom vekadosh shemo.
Shochenat Marom v'kadosh shemo.
Befi yesharim titalal v'divrei tzadikim titbarach uvilshon chasidim titromam v'kerev kedoshim titkadash. Bottom of the page, the Chatzi Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושמחתה ונחמתה תמידם בעלמא ויאמרו 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 אמן. Let's continue now with the Baruch, our daily opportunity to bless the name of God, the source of all blessing. Baruch, page 12, please rise. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
You may be seated. As we start preparing ourselves to recite the Shema Israel, we have a couple of blessings before we are ready. We are spiritually ready to recite the Shema Israel. So we need this spiritual warm-up, the form of being aware of the blessings of our lives, being aware of the presence of God, and now being aware of the wisdom of the Torah to illuminate our lives. Page 13, V'ha'er Eineinu, and that is our introduction to the Shema Israel. V'ha'er Eineinu B'toratecha B'toratecha V'dabek libeinu B'mitzvotecha B'mitzvotecha V'ha'er Eineinu B'toratecha B'toratecha V'dabek libeinu B'mitzvotecha B'mitzvotecha V'yached levaveinu le'ava ulidah et shemecha ve'lo nebosh le'olam va'ed ve'lo nebosh le'olam le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha הגדול והנודע בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך והאר עינינו בתורתך בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך במצוותיך ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. We'd like to invite you all now to turn to page 14 as we continue with the second paragraph, which is a beautiful English introduction to the Shema Israel, a modern composition called Listen. If you're lost, you feel afraid, and you don't know what to say, then listen. listen to our God. Is there a question on your mind? Is the answer hard to find? Then listen to our God. Listen with all your heart and soul, and with all your might. Write them and learn them and teach them well, every morning and night. Close your eyes and listen. Quiet yourself, there's nothing to say. Stop all the chatter that gets in the way, and listen to our God. When the wind and the thunder finally disappear, there's still a voice that you can hear if you listen to our God. You can hear it from the top of the highest hill, or from the valley below. It can come from the edge of the universe. It can come from within your soul. Close your eyes and listen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malechuto Leolam Vaed. Listen to our God. Listen to our God. Let's continue silently, pages 15, 16, and top of page 17. Adonai Elohim Emet. Let's continue on page 17. This beautiful prayer, the song of victory, the Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar V'Kodesh, Nora Tehilot, Osef Ele. Micha
כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך, על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם. Please rise. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, עבדנו לך יהודה וישראל, פועלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Please remain standing for the Amidah, our central prayer. This is an invitation to strengthen our connection with God, our connection with our Creator. In order to achieve that, we have a few options. The first part is going to be sung, hopefully all together, the first three blessings in Hebrew. After that, we're going to move into a silent form of prayer for the Amidah. For that part, the invitation is that you can use the Hebrew, the English, or also you can use your own words of prayer. Don't miss this opportunity to reconnect with your soul and to strengthen that connection with the Creator of the world. Now, let's start together on page 18. Let's sing together the first three blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך, בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך מימית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנת עליה חיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. Bottom of page 20, the קדושה. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו, בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כמחים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון וקרוב, וימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ואיננו תרנה מלכותך כדבר אמור ושירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך.
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך.
ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please continue silently, Hebrew, English, or your own words of prayer. And also a reminder that, is that right, we have 3 open aliyot today?
We have 3 open aliyot. That's right. So if anyone, they are the second aliyah, Sheni. If there's any Levis among us who are pretty keen. And then Chamishi, the 5th aliyah, and Shishi, the 6th aliyah. First come, first serve.
And if you want to Zoom aliyah, please send an email to zoom@szwinnipeg.ca. Let's continue silently with the Amidah. Once you complete your prayer, please be seated. The Kaddish Shalem, page 32. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחיי חרוי מי כונוב כזה כבדת ישראל בעלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יש מרבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ותורת ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה על שם קודשי בריחו לעין לה מקורכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמידם בעלמא ויאמרו אמן תתקבל צלותינו ועובדינו לכל ישראל קודם עוון דבשמיא ויאמרו אמן יש לה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן עושה שלום ממרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו amen.
Nice shacharit, everybody. Yasher Koach, Rabbi Mas, Leslie Emery, Bill Weissman. Beautiful, beautiful job. I liked it. I liked it a lot. We did a couple extra things, some good singing. People on the chat seemed to appreciate it. Hopefully, everyone appreciated it. I know I did. And now we're going to move into the next part of our service, which is the Torah service. Just a reminder, we mentioned it before, we have a couple of open aliyot. Looks like Debbie Pollock has claimed one of those, which is great. Ian Rabb is up for one. Ian, send us your Hebrew name and your parents' Hebrew names as well, and we'll throw you in there at the second aliyah. And if you want to do a Zoom aliyah, like Rabbi Mas said, send an email to zoom@szwinnipeg.ca, and we can squeeze you in. Otherwise, Bill Wiseman will recite the blessings on your behalf. So that means there's one left. So thanks to Ian Rabb and thanks to Debbie Pollock. And if there's anyone else there with an occasion or just wanting an honor to the Torah, as we get ready for today's Parsha, which is a double Parsha, Tazria Metzora. So there's still one open. But while we're waiting for that, and we invite you wherever you are, please rise. Leslie Emery is going to lead us on page 33 in the Torah service as we take the Torah scroll out of the ark.
ויהי בנצוע אהרון ויאמר משה קומה
אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Kadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadlul Adonai iti uneromema Shemo yachdav Lecha Adonai Agedula ותפארת והנצח וההוד. כי כה בשמיים ובארץ, כי כה בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני לממלכה, והעמים נעשה לך לראש.
רוממו,
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 אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו,
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 אדם רגליו קדוש הוא. רוממו,
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 אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו,
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 להר קודשו, כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני אלוהינו.
Sure kochech, Leslie.
Baruch tiyeh.
Okay. Now it's time to switch books. Get ready for the Torah reading. Okay, I'll stall. Rochelle Pinkovich. Will the real Rochelle Pinkovich please stand up? And by stand up, we mean join the Zoom call. I thought I saw Rochelle on the chat. She was certainly with us last night, which was so nice. There she is. Okay, good. So, I mentioned we're going to switch books. If you have a hardcover copy, it looks like this. It is a red leather-bound book called the Etz Chaim Chumash. If you don't have it, you got options. You can follow along on our website with a PDF version of the Etz Chaim Chumash. I'll call out the page numbers. Or you can use another Chumash, another copy of at least the Torah or maybe the entire Tanakh. Today, the double parsha, often done together, of Tazria, Metzora. We read a chunk of it as our triennial cycle is in year 2. We are in the book of Leviticus. That's Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. And we will begin today in chapter 13. Today's reading will span the end of chapter 13 and into the beginning of chapter 14. If you have the Etz Chaim or you're following on our website, as at winnipeg.ca with the PDF, it is page 657 where we start. Again, Leviticus chapter 13, and we will begin with verse 40. Leslie Emery is going to read the first 2 aliyot this morning, beginning with Rishon, the first aliyah, and we'll call Rochelle Pinkovich in a second, who is going to be our Zoom honoree. She's commemorating her mother Minheft's Yortzeit with this aliyah. We'll call her in just a moment. A little bit of context. Last week, remember, our parsha was Shmini, and we spent a good period of time talking about kashrut, talking about the animals, split hooves, chew their cud, and fins and scales for the fish, and the bird list. Remember, Rabbi Mas had a great teaching about the chasidah, the stork, and all of that. The way that the book of Vayikra, the way that Leviticus follows that chapter, which was chapter 11, is it kind of kicks off a whole discussion of this idea of tameh versus tahor, impure versus pure. Remember, we talked about how kasher is not a word that you see anywhere in the Tanakh. It's a word that came later in rabbinic literature, that as far as the Torah is concerned with these animals that are no good, impure, tameh, pure, tahor. This idea of tameh, this idea of tum'ah, ritual impurity, was a very, very serious thing for our ancestors, for the ancient Israelites, for Bnei Israel. And that's why there's a lot of time, several chapters here in the middle of the book of Vayikra devoted to this concept of ritual impurity. I mentioned this last night. Last year, we had just kind of started the pandemic when we read these parshas together. But here, a year plus later, I feel like if there's any section of the Torah that resonates with us differently in light of the pandemic, it's all of this business about tumah, about ritual impurity. The ancient Israelites treated it as like this invisible, airborne, contagious issue, right? And there were lots of things that happened that were good things in life that made you ritually impure. That's where Tazria starts. When a woman gives birth, Zerah, a seed, that's where the Tazria part comes from. She is automatically rendered ritually impure. And there's a period of time after that. And lots of bodily functions, often things that are connected to the reproductive systems and to reproduction, these things that happen naturally, these natural human phenomena, they all render people for varying degrees ritually impure. But then you also have this thing called tzara'at. And that leads us into the second part, which forms the majority of what we're going to read today, Metzora, tzara'at. It's often been translated as leprosy. If you technically look it up, the scientific definition of leprosy, it is not leprosy. It's better that we just call it tzara'at. It is a skin disease, right? What a lot of these things had in common, with the release of life fluids. And they kind of had this idea that if life fluids are escaping from your body, that it's got to be the opposite of life, which is death. We know that ritual impurity you could contract it by being in the same tent or being in the presence of a dead body. And also if these other things like childbirth or these other reproductive systems, these other things that happened, anything that looked like life escaping or actual death was this idea of death coming in. And for tzara'at, for the skin condition, they perceived it as kind of life escaping because of the way it looked on your skin. And so there's all these verses, all this time spent on what is tzara'at, what isn't tzara'at. The Kohen, the priest, had this job of identifying, looking at somebody if they had a concern, kind of examining, almost like a doctor, right? Is this rash tzara'at? Yes. If it is, this is what you do. And you wait a week, and there's a quarantine, and like I said, all these things that resonate so differently for us today. What we're going to be reading about today as we pick it up here in the middle of chapter 13. There's been a lot of time so far, the last couple of chapters, talking about all the things that cause ritual impurity, talking about what tzara'at can look like, what we just talked about. And here we're going to kind of see the wrap-up of that, and then also see that tzara'at isn't just limited to humans, but it can also happen in the walls of your house. It can happen in your clothes. And if you're thinking, well, this is crazy, you have to understand that for the Israelites, for our ancient ancestors, the visual appearance of mold, mildew, things that you would see in your wall, things that you could see in your clothes, looked a lot like what you would sometimes see on people's skins. So this is skins, whatever. The point is that there was a connection, and we're going to read about that here in the beginning, and then segue into the next part and the last part, the majority of the rest of the reading, which is, there's no mention in the Torah of how you cure tzara'at. There's a lot of time about identifying tzara'at, and then what you do after you're cured of it. Because inevitably, if it's determined that you have tzara'at, you have to remove yourself. You go into a quarantine. You go outside the city walls. You go outside the camp, right? And then when everything clears up and you want to reintroduce yourself to the community, there are rituals and rites you have to go through. So identifying, lots of time. What to do after it's cured, lots of time. But there's no time spent. And the idea here is that curing someone of tzara'at, that's up to God. What we do after we're cured, that's up to us. So let's see how it unfolds. I think you have enough context for today's Torah reading. Again, it's page 657 in the Etz Chaim Chumash. We begin with chapter 13, and we're on verse 40 through 46, with Rochelle Pinkovich joining us on Zoom for our first Aliyah. V'yazor v'yem v'yoshil achol achosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol avu godel Eloheinu tenucha b'Torah tamor rochel bat Shaul akoenu mindo l'aliyah rishona. Baruch shenatan tromo Yisrael b'kedushato ve'atem avigim Adonai Elohechem chayim kochem hayom.
Baruch Hu Adonai Ambarach.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Veish kimaret rosho kereachu tahorhu v'mipat panav kimaret rosho kibeachu tahorhu כי יהיה בקרחת או בגבחת, נגע לבן אדם דם. צרת פורחת היא בקרחתו וגבחתו, וראה אותו הכהן. והנה שאת הנגע לבנה אדם דמת, וקרחתו וגבחתו, כמראה צרת עור בשר. איש צרוע הוא טמא הוא, טמא יטמאנו, הכהן בראשו ניגו, והצרוע אשר בו הנגע בגדיו, יהיו פרומים בראשו, יהיה פרוע ועל שפם יטה, וטמא טמא יקרא כל ימי, אשר הנגע בו יטמא טמא הוא, ועד ישב מחוץ המחנה מושבו.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher kochech to you, Rochelle Pinkovich. Thank you so much for joining us as you do all the time, and for another aliyah to the Torah.
I just want to mention that my mother, who I'm having your site for, was the first woman on the board of Sherazadek and the first woman to have an aliyah at Sherazadek.
Beautiful.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Rochelle told me that at one time, but I had forgotten, and so I'm glad that you reminded all of
You've
us.
got a lot going on up there in your head.
It sounds like a compliment, but I'm not sure if it is. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Moving on to Sheni, our second aliyah. And Yasher Kochech to Leslie, a beautiful Torah reading to get us started. One word that I'm going to highlight for you, you're going to hear a lot, nega. Nega is translated as affliction. You'll see it paired with sarat, negat sarat, quite often. And I know that Rabbi Mas has some teaching coming up later in the Devar on the significance of the letters and the message behind this word, nega. So as you see that here every time, the way that these readings is there's a lot of repetition of terms, right? Because you can understand they're looking for tsarat. Is it tsarat? Is it not tsarat? Here on his face, here. The one good news there for all gentlemen, you saw it at the beginning, baldness is not a sign of tsarat necessarily. So, just saying, that's in there. And what a crazy thing there where you have to run through the town basically. I'm unclean, tameh, tameh. Anyway, it's very interesting, and again, I'll say it one more time. In light of everything that we've been through in the last year plus, this idea of being impure, this idea of contracting something, and what it does to your standing in the community, I think it's a very, very interesting new lens with which we look at this part of the Torah. We continue starting with verse 47. It'll take us to verse 54 here in the second aliyah. We've got Ian Rabb, who is a Levi, who has jumped up and asked for an aliyah, which is great. Bill Weissman will recite the blessings on his behalf as we continue with our Torah reading. Yamod Ephraim ben David Alevi v'Sara l'aliyah hashniya.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim. V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'habeged ki yebo negat tzarat. Baveged tzemer o baveged pishtim, o vashti o vahev la pishtim, vela tzemer o vaor, o bechom lechetor, vayanehega yirakra kodam dam, baveged o vaor, o vashti o vahev o bechol klior, Negat tzarat hu ve'orat hakohen. וראה הכהן את הנגע, והזכיר את הנגע 7 ימים. וראה את הנגע ביום השביעי, כי פשע הנגע בבגד, ובשתי ובערב ובאור, לכל אשר יעשה האור למלאכה, צרת ממרת, הנגע טמא הוא. ושרף את הבגד, או את השתי, או את הערב, בצמר או בפשתים, או את כל כלי אור, אשר יהיה בו הנגע, כי צרת ממרת, ובאש תשרף. אם יראה הכהן, הנה לא פשע הנגד, בבגד, או בשתי, או בערב, או בכל כלי אור. או בכל כלי אור, וציווה הכהן, וחיפשו את אשר בו הנגע, והזכירו 7 ימים שנית.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher Koach to Ian Rabb, our second honorary honoree this morning. Thank you so much, Ian. Shabbat Shalom to you. And Yasher Kochach to Leslie Emery, our Torah reader for the first 2 aliyot this morning. Thanks so much, Leslie.
Thank you.
We'll continue in a moment with Shlishi. I'll slide up there and continue with the Torah reading. As we are on to page 658, we're going to finish off Leviticus chapter 13 here with verses 55 through 59. She won't be joining us on Zoom, but Irene Boxer-Marowitz is our third honorary honoree this morning. Bill Weissman will recite the blessings on her behalf. This aliyah for Irene is in commemoration of her sister, Jackie Boxer-Leslie's yahrzeit. Just want to point out, this is the part we alluded to in the introduction. Tzara'at, not limited to skin. You can get it in your clothes, you can get it in your house, and you saw a little bit there in that second aliyah, and you'll see more, and bring it to a conclusion here, and the chapter to a conclusion in the third aliyah. For now, though, let's jump into it. Page 658 again, chapter 13, verses 55 through to the end. Ta'amod Chaya bat Binyamin v'tzipora l'aliyah hashlishit.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai vorach leolam vaed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Amen. וראה הכהן אחרי הוא כבס את הנגע, והנה לא הפך הנגע את עינו, והנגע לא פסע טמא הוא באש תשרפנו, פחתת היא בקרחתו וגבחתו, ואם ראה הכהן, והנה כהה הנגע אחרי הוא כבס אותו, וקרא אותו מן הבגד או מן האור או מן השתי או מן הערב, ואם תראה עוד בבגד או בשתי ובערב או בכל כלי אור, פורחת היא באש תשרפנו את אשר בו הנגע, והבגד הבגד, או השתי או הערב או כל כליור, אשר תכבס ושר מהם הנגה, וכיבס שנית וטהר. זאת תורת נגע צרת, בגד עד צמר או הפשתים, או השתי או הערב או כל כליור, לטהרו או לטמאו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Asher kochech to Irene Boxer-Meyerowitz, who I know said hi on the chat. Thank you for being here this morning, Irene. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you for taking this aliyah. We'll move on to Rivi'i, our fourth aliyah, and into the next chapter, Leviticus chapter 14. We begin on page 660 with this aliyah, verses 1 through 5. Leon Pinkovich will join us on Zoom in a moment as he's marking his birthday with this aliyah to the Torah, and it's great to have him. We'll welcome him and call him up in just a second. We move from the wrap-up there, a few aliyot on tzara'at, and specifically kind of the fact that it can be in your house, and it can be in the walls, and it can be in your clothes as well. And you see, and just like the 1 week wait, and then you have to wait a second week. I mean, it's just fascinating to me in light of everything that's going on these days. And now we move into what would be, if it were separate parshiyot, the Metzora part. Metzora it continues. It's the idea of tzara'at. A leper is often how it's translated. Again, we know it's not leprosy. It's someone who's afflicted with tzara'at. And as we mentioned, the Kohen has all these rules with following to determine if it's tzara'at. And then, what do you do after the tzara'at clears up? There's no medication. There's no cure. There's no mention of any of like what you do to get rid of the tzara'at. It's just about waiting. It's just about waiting for it to be done. But when you are clear of tzara'at, what do you do to get yourself back in everyone's good graces? God's good graces, the community's good graces. It requires a ritual involving 2 birds. And there might be some similarities. Think of another ritual with which we are familiar that we read about, maybe on the high holidays. This is kind of actually foreshadowing that ritual. We haven't read about that yet in the Torah. See if you get where I'm kind of leading you and if any of this stands out as being like, wait, I've heard something like this before. We start with chapter 14, again on page 660, verses 1 through 5. And here comes Leon celebrating his birthday. Yamod le ben asher v'rochol aliyah harvi'it.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayedaber Adonai Moshe lemor. Zot tiyeh Torah Metzora beyom tahorato vehuva el hakohen. V'yatsa hakohen el michutz lamachane v'ra'a hakohen. V'hinei nirpa negad hatzarad min hatzarua. V'tziva hakohen v'lakach lamitaher. Shtei tziporim chayot tehorot ve'et zerez ushni tolad ve'zov. V'tziva hakohen v'shachat et hatzipor ha'echat el kli cheres al mayim chayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mi shebeirach avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sar Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech et leben asher v'rocho she'ala hayom lichvod hamakom v'lichvod haTorah v'lichvod haShabbat ulehodot al kol hachasadim asher gamalo Elohim miyom yivaldo ad hayom hazeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishmor oto v'et kol mishpachto v'yishlach bracha v'tzlacha b'chol masei yadav im kol Yisrael lecha v'nomar Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless Leon Pinkovich, who has come for an aliyah this morning with reverence for God and respect for the Torah in this Shabbat, grateful to God for the gift of life which he has enjoyed until this day. Leon, may the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be God, continue to bless you with length of years, with good health, with the pleasures of Torah study, and with the profound satisfaction that comes from a life of ma'asim tovim, that is a life of good deeds. In celebrating this and other birthdays, may your example remind us, people may count the days of their life, but a person of wisdom makes every day count. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Simin tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tov, simin tov, yehelanu, 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 ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael.
Mazel tov. Many happy returns.
Thank you.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Leon.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope next year to be in the building for my birthday. And just to, Rabbi, liable to tell you too, I assure you what my mother said was the highest compliment.
I know, I was just kibitzing too.
So,
Leon, I'm going to use Leslie's words. Have cake, right, Leslie?
Oh, I was going to say you should have a huge
Tomorrow.
piece of cake and enjoy
tomorrow.
and celebrate. And it's been so great seeing you at Minyan and at Shul
Thank you.
this whole year, you know, Leon. It's great to
Yes.
see you this morning.
And you as well.
I can't
Well,
wait for
we're
you. I can't wait for you to come and do Hagbah.
having cake tomorrow. So being
Enjoy.
Pardon me?
I can't wait for you to come back and do Hagbah.
I feel the same way. I look forward to that day as well.
At the very end there, Leon turned into one of the teachers
Maybe
from
this
Charlie
year.
Brown, so that's okay.
Maybe this year even.
Okay, I like it.
That one, just to let people in behind the curtain, that one got Marvin to laugh, and Marvin never laughs. So I think I'm going to actually go home. See y'all. I'm leaving on a high note, even with the Torah out, because I made my favorite Marvin laugh. I was just checking the chat. A lot of love for you, Leon. We got Josue and Murray wishing you happy birthday. Jerome Fomin, Yom Huledet Sameach. Jackie Sipe. Sandy Polanski as well. Alice Weissman. Thelma Suris. Hannah Bell. A lot of people wishing you a happy birthday, echoing our thoughts. Mazel Tov. Admea Ve'asrim. Thank you for marking your birthday with an aliyah to the Torah.
Thank you so much.
Now let's continue on. This ritual is unfolding, right? I told you about the two birds. Let's see what happens here. Chamishi is next, fifth aliyah, page 661, chapter 14, verses 6 through 12. Big points to anyone who can tell me which familiar ritual this one is foreshadowing. Let's see. Earlier, we mentioned there were some open aliyot. Debbie Pollock and Jackie Sipe grab those aliyot. So Debbie, this one is going to be yours. Just let me make sure that I've got the right Hebrew name. Bill Wiseman will recite the blessings on Debbie's behalf. Tamod dvoragita bad Leah umicho l'aliyah hachamishit.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
Amen.
Amen. את הציפור החיה ייקח אותה, ואת עץ הארז, ואת שני התולעת, ואת האזוב, וטבל אותם, ואת הציפור החיה, בדם הציפור השחוטה על המים החיים, והיא זל המטהר מן הצרת 7 פעמים, וטיהרו ושילח את הציפור החיה על פני השדה, וכיבס המטהר בגדיו, וגילח את כל שערו, ורחץ במים וטהר, ואחר יבוא אל המחנה, וישב מחוץ לאהלו 7 ימים, והיה ביום השביעי יגלח את כל שערו, את ראשו ואת זקנו ואת גבות עיניו, ואת כל שערו יגלח, וכיבס את בגדיו, ורחץ את בשרו במים וטהר, וביום השמיני ייקח 2 כבשים תמימים, וכבשה אחת בת שנתה תמימה, ו3 עשרונים סולת מנחה בלולה בשמן, ולוג אחד שמן, והעמיד הכהן המטהר את האיש המטהר, ואותם לפני אדוני פתח אוהל מועד. ולקח הכהן את הכבש האחד, והקריב אותו לאשם ואת לוג השמן, והניף אותם תנופה לפני אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher kochech to Debbie Pollock, our 5th honoree this morning. I wanted to mention, as Debbie mentioned in the chat, that she has asked and accepted this aliyah in memory of her Zeta Philibel, Pinchas ben Pinchas Halevi Udvora. So thank you so much, Debbie, for being with us all the time. Love seeing your comments in the chat, and thank you for accepting this aliyah. Did anyone catch it? Did anyone catch it? Let's see. I thought I was leaving for the day. I'm not leaving for the day. On Rosh Hashanah, it's close. Jerome Foman got it. It's a bit of a weird ritual. It's weird in the sense that this is the only moment in the Torah we've seen ritual blood from the chatat offering, for example, from the purification offering, sprinkled inside the Mishkan. And then later it'll be sprinkled, as a purifying agent. We've seen blood from an animal used to cleanse the altar, to cleanse a room, sprinkled in the room. This is the only place in the Torah where ritual blood, where animal blood is applied to a person, right? The 2 birds, which are kind of seen as being one entity, one bird slaughtered and the blood into this mixture with water, and then the other bird dipped into it and sprinkled on the guy. Yes, there are some things in the Torah that are a little tough. You may not want to be eating breakfast. And what happens to the second bird? Let it fly away. This is exactly right, a foreshadowing to the Azazel, to the 2 goats from the Yom Kippur ritual, which will be outlined in just a couple of chapters. In chapter 16, we're very familiar with this. It gives us the English term scapegoat, which we still use to this day. The idea that one of the animals is slaughtered and its blood is used. The other animal is sent away, as if to rush. In that case with the goat, it's sin that you want to send far, far away. The sins you can't destroy, you want to just send them out of here. Here, it's the impurity, really, the symbolism of the impurity that is flying away with that second bird. So good on you, Jerome Foman. Free pizza when we get back into the shul. Don't quote me, but I think we can do that for you. Sixth Aliyah is next, Shishi, page 661, chapter 14 here, verses 13 through 20. The ritual of this Metzora, returning to the community, is not complete. Now after this business with the birds and everything, now there are going to be some sacrifices, some offerings. And we'll see them unfold here. Jackie Sipe wanted to grab an Aliyah in recognition of celebrating the state of Israel's birthday, which we just celebrated with Yom HaAtzmaut, and technically today is the day, the 5th of Iyar, though it's on a Shabbat, so we had the Chag a couple days ago. And Jackie, it's great to have you. Bill will recite the blessings on your behalf for this 6th Aliyah. Tamod Yael Ban Mot Kevester L'Aliyah HaShishit.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'shachar et hakeves bimkom asher yishchar et hachatat v'et ha'olah bimkom hakodesh ki kachatat hashamhu lakohen kodesh kadashim hu v'lakach hakohen midam hasham v'natan hakohen al tenuch ozen hamitaher hayemanit ve'al bohen yado hayemanit ve'al bohen raglo hayemanit v'lakach hakohen milog hashamen v'yatzak al kaf hakohen hasmalit v'taval hakohen et etzba'o hayemanit min hashemen asher al kapo hasmalit v'hiza min hashemen betzba'o sheva pamim lifnei Adonai umiyeter hashemen asher al kapo iten hakohen al tenuch ozen hamitaher hayemanit ve'al bohen yado hayemanit ve'al bohen raglo hayemanit al dam hasham v'anotar b'shemen asher al kaf hakohen yiten al rosh hamitaher v'chiper alav hakohen lifnei Adonai Ve'asa hakohen et hachatat v'chiper al mitaher mitumato ve'achar yishchad et ha'olah ve'hela kohen et ha'olah ve'et hamincha hamizbecha v'chiper alav hakohen ve'taher.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yisher Kochech to Jackie Sipe, our 6th honoree this morning. Thanks, Jackie. Great occasion marking Israel's birthday. This brings us to our final Aliyah of the morning, Shvi'i Maftir, the 7th and concluding Aliyah. Our Haftarah reader this morning, Pam Bager, is going to join us and recite these blessings. This Parsha was Pam's Bat Mitzvah Parsha a few years back. And for the last couple of years, she has joined us to revisit the Haftarah she learned part of for her Bat Mitzvah, because, of course, it was a Banat Mitzvah, and she shared it. And she'll be reading the full Haftarah for us this morning. But first, we call her up for this Aliyah. Kind of, I guess, where we finish in the middle of the Parshiot because of the second triennial year. But the last kind of section here is kind of pulling together the ritual here for the Metzora, someone who's recovered from tzara'at to return and these offerings. And as the Torah often does in these situations, it tries to be as inclusive as it can be. What if somebody can't afford the animals that we saw outlined in the last aliyah for the offerings? What if someone is of not quite of those means? Well, there's an opportunity to offer maybe less expensive animals and still participate, still go through the rituals. So that's what we're going to see in this final aliyah. It is Leviticus chapter 14, beginning with verse 21 through to the end of verse 32. It starts on page 662. And again, joining us on Zoom, our honoree this morning is Pam Baker. Tamod, Fru Menachem Atalia, Ba Menachem Alevi Vihudit, Maftirach Hizki.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vimdalhu vein yado maseget velakach keves echad hasham litnufa lechaper alav visaron solet echad balul bashem en lemincha velog shamen ushtei torim o shnei bnei yonah asher tasig yado v'haya echad chatat v'echad olah והביא אותם ביום השמיני לטהרתו אל הכהן אל פתח אוהל מועד לפני אדוני ולקח הכהן את כבש האשם ואת לוג השמן והניף אותם הכהן תנופה לפני אדוני ושחט את כבש האשם ולקח הכהן מדם האשם ונתן על תנוחו המטהר הימנית ועל בוהן ידו הימנית ועל בוהן רגלו הימנית ומן השמן יצוק הכהן על כף הכהן השמאלית והיזה הכהן באצבעו הימנית מן השמן אשר על כפו השמאלית 7 פעמים לפני אדוני ונתן הכהן מן השמן אשר על כפו על תנוך אוזן המטהר הימנית ועל בוהן ידו הימנית ועל בוהן רגלו הימנית על מקום דם האשם והנותר מן השמן אשר על כף הכהן ייתן על ראש המטהר לכפר עליו לפני אדוני ועשה את האחד מן התורים או מן בני היונה מאשר תשיג ידו את אשר תשיג ידו את האחד חטאת ואת האחד עולה על המנחה וכיפר הכהן על המטהר לפני אדוני זאת תורת אשר בו נגד צרת אשר לא תשיג ידו בטהרתו.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashir kochech to Pam, to you Pam. Pam will be chanting the Haftarah as we mentioned coming up in a few moments, which is on page 676 if you have the Etz Chaim Chumash. The way it works is it's a double parsha, so we do the Haftarah that would be for Metzora, if Metzora was on its own, or in this case, as part of a double parsha. The connection is that we spend some time talking about an individual who was recovered from tzara'at. And this story, this haftarah, takes us to a place in the Nevi'im, in the prophets, in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 7. That's Milachim Bet, 2 Kings chapter 7. And the story of 4 Metzoraim, 4, well, they call them lepers, but they're not, 4 individuals afflicted with tzara'at who, because of the process, have been kicked out of the city and are outside the city and become unlikely heroes for the fact that they've been actually ostracized, quarantined from the community because of their tzara'at. But there's a siege going on, there's a famine going on, and for these 4 individuals, their position outside the city actually ends up putting them in a place where, like I said, they can be the unlikely heroes. So Pam's going to chant this story. Again, it's her bat mitzvah haftarah, and it's great to have her back to do that. So that's coming up, page 676, or if you've got another chumash, it's 2 Kings, Milachim Bet, chapter 7, verses 3 through 13. Before we get to that, we invite Bill Weissman to come forward for Hagbah and Glila, the lifting and tying of the scroll, and we invite all of you, wherever you are, please rise. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Please be seated. It's true, it's amazing actually. Last year, Pam Bager was the first person, I guess in Sheretz Zedek history, to chant a haftarah online through Zoom. We were about a month into the pandemic, and we had just kind of been doing proxy aliyot and having, the haftarah done by ritual team members, people who were in the building, and then we branched out, and we started getting people on Zoom, and Pam was the first one to do that. And here we are a year later. We're still locked out, but we've got Pam with us again, and we are so thankful for that. So again, it is page 676, 2 Kings, chapter 7, verses 3 through 13. And Pam, we'll turn things over to you now.
Okay, thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza b'dibrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai הבוחר בתורה, ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת בצדק.
אמן.
וארבעה אנשים היו מצורעים פתח השער, ויאמרו איש אל רעהו, מה אנחנו יושבים פה עד מתנו, אם אמרנו נבוא העיר, והרעב בעיר, ומתנו שם, אם ישבנו פה ומתנו, ועתה לכו ונפלא אל מחנה ארם, אם יחיונו נחיה, אם ימיתונו ומתנו. ויקומו בנשף לבוא אל מחנה ארם, ויבואו עד קצה מחנה ארם, והנה אין שם איש. ואדוני השמיע את מחנה ארם, כל רכב, כל סוס, כל חייל גדול, ויאמרו איש אל אחיו, הנה שכר עלינו מלך ישראל, את מלכי החיתים, ואת מלכי מצרים לבוא עלינו. ויקומו וינוסו בנשף, ויעזבו את אהליהם, ואת סוסיהם, ואת חמוריהם, המחנה כאשר היא, וינוסו אל נפשם. ויבואו המצורעים האלה עד קצה המחנה, ויבואו אל אוהל אחד, ויאכלו וישתו, ויישאו משם כסף וזהב ובגדים, וילכו ויטמינו, וישובו, ויבואו אל אוהל אחר, ויישאו משם, וילכו ויטמינו. ויאמרו איש אל רעהו, לא כן אנחנו עושים, היום הזה יום בשורה הוא, ואנחנו מחשים, וחיכינו עד אור הבוקר, ומצאנו עוון, ועתה לכו ונבוא, ונגידה בית המלך. ויבואו, ויקראו אל שוער העיר, ויגידו להם לאמור, באנו אל מחנה ארם, והנה אין שם איש וכל אדם, כי אם הסוס אסור, והחמור אסור, ואוהלים כאשר המה. ויקרא השוערים, ויגידו בית המלך פנימה. ויקום המלך לילה, ויאמר אל עבדיו, אגידה נא לכם את אשר עשו לנו ארם, ידעו כי רעבים אנחנו, ויצאו מן המחנה להיחבא בשדה לאמור, כי יצאו מן העיר ונתפסם חיים, ולעיר נבוא. ויען אחד מעבדיו, ויאמר, ויקחו נא 5 מן הסוסים הנשארים, אשר נשארו בה, הינם ככל המון ישראל, אשר נשארו בה, הינם ככל המון ישראל אשר תמו, ונשלחה ונראה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני.
ברוך וברוך שמו.
האל הנאמן בכל דבריו.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני.
ברוך וברוך שמו.
משמח ציון בבניה.
אמן.
Tzamchenu Adonai Eloheinu Belial Hanavi Avdecha Uvmalchut Beit David Meshichecha Bimhera Yavo Veyagel Libenu Al Kis'o Lo Yeshev Zar Velo Yinchalu Od Achirim Et Kevodo Ki B'Shem Kodshecha Nishbata Lo Shelo Yichbe Nero Leolam Ba'ed Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Magen David
Amen.
על התורה ועל עבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני.
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
מקדש השבת.
Amen. Well, I think Alice Weisman captured it on the chat. Yasher Kochech, Pam, beautifully chanted as always.
Thank you.
Did a fabulous job. Thank you so much for joining
Shabbat
us.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you too. Pam first came into my life a few years ago now, when I had put out a call after at Yom Kippur. I was doing Yonah. That if there was someone out there who wanted to do Yonah, I would gladly teach them. And then I heard that Pam Baker said sure, and we chatted and we learned trope together, and then she has done Maftir Yonah ever since. And we've had an opportunity for her to do her Bat Mitzvah Haftarah here for Metzora, which is so great. And of course, she shared this Bat Mitzvah with Sarah Walsh, who I met earlier this year as well, finally. So putting the pieces of the Metzora Haftarah puzzle together. And again, we thank Pam for doing it this morning.
Pam, it's a pleasure to hear you.
So, a couple of announcements, and then we'll go continue with our service. So we're going to go back to the Siddur. Thank you to everyone who participated in the Torah service. Thank you to Leslie Emery for our Torah reading. All of the honorees, a special happy birthday again to Leon Pinkovich. And thanks to Pam Baker, our Haftarah reader, as well to Marvin Polanski and Rabbi Moss for all their technical expertise behind the scenes, and Bill Wiseman for reciting the blessings on behalf of the honorees who couldn't join us on Zoom, and Hagba and Glila as well. A couple of things coming up. This Tuesday, that's April the 20th, at 2 o'clock, Rabbi Moss will be doing a concert. It's for the residents of the Simkin Center. They're going to be streaming it there, but anyone really can join and watch on our Facebook or YouTube pages or on the website, esedwinnipeg.ca. It's a free concert, no registration. That is coming up on Tuesday. And there's a little something going on, a little partnership program between us and the other synagogues, Etz Chaim, Temple Shalom, Adas Yeshur, and Herzliya. 5 sessions of a program called Machloket Matters, How to Disagree Constructively. Rabbi Ben Arush already had his session. The next one is coming up this Wednesday, the 21st of April. It's every Wednesday, the next 4 Wednesdays, really. And up next is Rabbi Finkel of Temple Shalom. This is a registration event. There are only a couple of spots left. You buy the whole package for the next 4 sessions. You can attend any or all if you like. And we want you to check that out on the Etz Chaim webpage. So go check out Congregation Etz Chaim's webpage. My session is on May 12th. Rabbi Massa' session is on May 5th, which puts Rabbi Cleo on April 28th, and this week coming up, Rabbi Finkel on the 21st. So we're going back to the Siddur, and we're going to turn to page 34, and Leslie is going to lead us in this Misha Berach for all those who are ill. I'll read off the names on our list this week of the people we are praying for, and you can add names to our chat, and we can call them out as well. Shoshana Bat Sarah, Adrian McDonald, Frida Bat Regina, Rishon Ben Sarah, Leah Bat Adele, Colin Rich, Andrew Strand, Maureen Rich, Aviva Bat Malka, Yaakov Ben Sion Ben Miriam, Isabella Bat Sarah, Chaya Zahava Bat Leah, Bat Sheva Bat Sarah, Yitzchak Dov ben Bela, Moshe Aharon ben Leah, Miriam Rachel bat Leah, Liba bat Fagel, Sharon bat Goldie, David Tzvi ben Sarah Pesel, Dina Rachel bat Sarah Esther, Yitzchak Chaim ben Sarah, Tova Yael bat Dina Rachel, Shir Naomi bat Dina Rachel, Eliezer Meir ben Tova Yael, Katriel Yosef ben Tova Yael, Yisrael Chaim ben Shir Naomi, Leticia Corrado, Stephen Mebatia ben Wingari, Esther Leah bat Menicha, Bailey bat Razel, Sivia bat Brana, Leah bat Rachel, Dvor Gitel bat Leah, Binyamin Pinchas ben Dvor Gitel, Nachum Le ben Leah, Avram ben Rachel, Hachazan Shefer ben Miriam, Shendel bat Miriam, Melissa Rodriguez, Harav Avraham Yehoshua Heschel ben Ruth, Risa bat Sarah, Elokim Pesach ben Esther Pesi, Sorasima Bracha bat Gitel Shendel, Uri Akiva ben Sarah, Rachel bat Sonia, Alfie Glass, Beryl ben Dvorah, Esther Bela bat Sarah, Atara bat Etel, Shmuel Leib ben Gitel, Dana Brinley, Janice Diner bat Batsheva, Stephen Alexander Lee, Lucy Braverman, Michael Braverman, Risa Langhans, Karen Greenberg, Ari ben Dvorah, Maria Carmelita Ferreira da Silva, Georgina Tassara, Yonatan ben Esther, Aria ben Michael, Herbert Singer, Carla bat Nancy, Kim bat Nancy, Andres ben Gloria, Temi bat Rochel, Isabella bat Sarah, Sam's List, William Joseph Stiles ben Esther, Esther bat Sarah, Jaden James Stiles ben Sarah, Christopher Pine ben Sarah, Katie Miller and Holly Miller, and anyone else we'll be praying for this morning. As well, we also are mindful of the people who are on the front lines, the healthcare providers, doctors, nurses who continue to fight on behalf of communities across the world against this pandemic. We're praying for everyone this morning, and Leslie Emery will lead us now on page 34 in this special Mishaberach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Leslie. We invite you to rise wherever you are as we return the Sefer Torah to the Ark, Yahalalu, led for us by Rabbi Mas on page 41.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו.
הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, 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 הללויה.
Page 43. עץ חיימי למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה Shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
The ark is closed. You may be seated. Reminder that if you have a yort site and you want to join us for our minion service tonight, it's at 6 o'clock Winnipeg time, led for us by Leslie Emery, Shabbat Mincha with a Torah reading.
Even if you don't have a yard site.
You can join, that's true. That may be a reason people are looking and wondering, so it's 6 o'clock. And then later this evening, when it's the appropriate time for Havdalah, you can check your email, your inbox for Arena Sector Elbaz and her weekly Havdalah video. Service tomorrow morning, Shachrit, 9 a.m., with Bill Weissman, and service tomorrow night, Mincha Mariv, 6 p.m. with Bill as well. During the week, our Shachrit is a 7:30 a.m. service, and our Mincha Mariv is a 6 p.m. service with Kabbalat Shabbat Fridays at 5:30, and Shabbat morning right here at 10. A couple of weeks, we're going to have some bar mitzvah students, God willing, and some small bar mitzvahs. We finally graduate a few kids who were kind of sidelined by the pandemic. So that's something to look forward to in the month of May. But we're still in April, and we're what was the connection again? Oh, yeah, I know you got a joke. But I set people up to talk about nega. So whenever you're ready, Rabbi, I think it's time.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Rabbi Leibel.
You're welcome.
And yeah, I have a joke for you. So I heard about this rabbi who was in an airplane, and he was reading from a Tanakh, a Bible. And there was a man sitting next to him, keeps looking at the rabbi, and the man said, "Come on, please don't tell me that you believe everything that is in that book." The rabbi looked at the man and says, "Of course I do. It's the Bible." I said, "Oh, come on, but what about that man that was swallowed by a whale?" The rabbi said, "You mean Jonah?" "Yeah, I believe in that too." And the man said, "But come on. How is it possible that a man will be able to survive for all that time inside a whale?" The rabbi thinks for a minute and said, "I don't know. But whenever I make it to heaven, I will ask Jonah personally." The other man said, "Well, what if Jonah is not in heaven?" The rabbi said, "Well, in that case, you'll have to ask him." So, you just got it?
Well, you didn't really give a lot of time for it to breathe. You got to let it breathe. You got to imagine a bunch of people in here, half of them rolling their eyes and half of them laughing at you. So that's
Okay.
at the joke. Sorry, not at you. At the joke.
So, I want to talk to you today about who told you that? Who told you that? The thing is, I always like to reflect on the topic of the power of the words. Words are such an amazing tool, but as every tool and everything that we have in this world, we can use it for goodness and you can use it for evil. It's like many powerful things that we have, and we all know that. All the way from electricity to atomic energy and so many other things that we can use it for something positive, or it can be used for something negative to create destruction. And words are not an exception. We all know that proper words at the right time can uplift you. The wrong words can create all the opposite. And it's interesting because we have to be very careful of that. We have to find ways of protecting ourselves from destructive words. There are many people around us, and at least that's my experience. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you have the same experience in your life. There are lots of people around us that they seem to have a talent to let us know everything that we cannot do or everything that is wrong in our lives. They have this talent to bring us down by pointing out things that to their opinion is wrong, and because of that, we won't be able to achieve certain things. And it's so negative that sometimes we take those words as valid advice. We believe those lies, and eventually we forget or we discontinue our plans, our projects, our dreams because of something that somebody else said. And the thing is, and I hope you can learn this, or I hope you know it, that not every opinion has the same value. Not every opinion, not every word said to you will have the same value. So we have to be very careful to who we listen, because if you listen to the wrong people for long enough, then you are going to start believing those lies as well. And there is something that is going to be not so good for our lives. So now, let me tell you what's going on in this parsha. And then I believe it is connected with this concept of being careful of who is around us. This parsha, as Rabbi Leibel explained before, is talking about this condition that is called tzara'at. Sometimes it's translated as leprosy, but we don't really know what it is, because how is it possible that it could affect the skin, but also, for example, walls or clothes? So the rabbis agree that it's something else, that it looks like leprosy, but it's not necessarily leprosy. But it's very interesting that that affliction on the skin, on the clothes, or on the walls is called nega. Nega translates as affliction. But it's something very interesting of this affliction, this nega, that happens on the walls of a house. Because it says that whenever you find this nega in your walls, then you have to go to the Kohen, to the priest. The priest will come as an expert, and he will tell you, yes, it is, or no, it is not. And this is something very interesting, because I'm pretty sure that back in the day, whenever somebody will develop this kind of nega, either in the skin or in the walls, will be lots of people that said, you're doomed. You know what? I've seen other people having the same thing, and it didn't end well for them. Yeah, you will always find these negative people around as soon as there is a nega around your life, an affliction around your life. But that's why the Torah says, don't listen to them. Go to the Kohen. The Kohen is somebody that, at least in theory, at least on paper, is someone who is connected to God, and he will find the right way to come to you, to approach you, to talk to you, and to encourage you in this difficult time. But this is an interesting thing, because it says that whenever, this is Rashi explaining, whenever the Kohen notices a nega on a wall, he will tell you that unfortunately that section, or sometimes the entire house, will have to be demolished. And Rashi said that every time that a house was demolished because of this nega on the walls, the homeowners found a treasure behind the walls. I don't know if you can see what is written between lines here in these verses of the Torah, and how from this affliction came out a treasure, because they went to talk to the right person. Can you see that? It says only because they went to talk to the Kohen said, you have to bring that house down. And because of that, now they found a treasure. And the rabbis go even further, and they notice that the word nega, affliction, if you change the order of the letter, now you have oneg, that means pleasure. So how interesting it is to learn that whenever you have a nega, an affliction, if you rely on the right people, that nega could become an oneg. That difficulty could become an opportunity. And I believe that's life. We all develop a nega, an affliction, sooner or later. But our ability to make it to the other side depends on the people that we invite to be close to us. Do we invite people that they bring the right words to us, people who uplift us, people who are positive, people who are trying to always point out the best of us? Or we let ourselves to be surrounded by negative people, people that they always find everything wrong in our lives, people that they're always bringing us down? Well, this parsha is an invitation to remember how important it is to find the right people to help us on situations where we develop a nega, an affliction. And I remember since the pandemic started, I started to take this little project by myself to try to learn more about audio, video, streaming, you name it. And I found this kind of guru on YouTube that one day I was listening to his classes because he's an amazing teacher, and he went kind of off topic, very weird, that he's very technical, and he started to talk about his personal life, how he became this famous YouTuber with thousands and thousands of subscribers, and said that he was working for IBM as an IT guy, and one day he was laid off, and now he didn't know what to do. He was kind of desperate, trying to find something else to do, and he has this idea to open a YouTube channel. Most of the people around him, they laugh at him and told him that he was crazy. They say, what do you know about YouTube? And then the guy said, well, I don't know much now, but I think I can learn. And I believe that I'm a very good teacher. Well, lots of negative people came to his life, but he decided instead of listening to those people to rely on his family and a couple of close friends that encouraged him to follow his dream. And boy, they were right. Right now, he is this amazing teacher who is teaching other people how to incorporate new technologies during these difficult times. You see, sometimes that person could be us, where we have to face a challenge. And at that time, we only hope that we could find the right people that it will encourage us to bring the best of us so we can transform that nega in an oneg, that difficulty in an opportunity. If you ask this guy now, what do you think about the nega, the affliction that he had a couple of years ago, he will tell you, which affliction? Because he realized that sometimes something that started as an affliction could become a treasure. So I believe the Torah is bringing these uplifting messages week after week, but I believe this specific one is something that is very current, because in one way or another, we're all going through challenges in this time. Challenges that sometimes seems to be endless. We cannot see an end outside. How can we make it to the other side? Well, let's listen to the words of the Torah. Everything starts with surrounding us with the right people. So they will bring the right words to our life. And with those encouraging words, we can go from nega to oneg, and from oneg to treasure. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And Yasher Koach.
Shabbat Shalom indeed. And yes, exactly as Leslie said.
Thank you, guys.
You really showed us how to turn a negative into a positive.
I like nega because it sounds like negative.
That's what I just, yeah.
It does, yeah, and it's such a perfect way to explain and to express the whole concept. Yasher Koach. And your jokes, keep them. They're fun.
We're going to conclude our service with a few final prayers in our Siddur, beginning with Aleinu on page 44. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרוב השמיים ממעל, ושכינת זו וגומי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אינו אמת מלכנו וזולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמך, ועל הארץ מתחת עינות. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו You may remain standing for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 46. This past week, we mourned the passing of Martin Brody and offer our heartfelt sympathy to Patricia Brody, Carolyn Myron Kanofsky, and Marilyn and Tom Hicks. We also mourn the passing of Jacob Seuferman and offer our sincere condolences to Karen Seuferman, Mark Seuferman and Kathleen McClinton, Heather and Kurt Thiessen, Tova and Larry Vicker, and Shoshana Kushmish. We also mourn the passing of Mildred Gutkin and offer our deepest sympathy to Dee Dee and Zelig Pollock, to Ralph Gutkin, and to David Kahanovich. As a community, we extend our condolences to the families who are still in the first month of losing their loved ones, the families of Mindel Olenek, Mark Jeffries, Saul Rifkin, Bev Fingerhut, and Toby Gutwillick. And this week at Congregation Shaare Zedek, we will be commemorating the yortzites of Jackie Boxer Leslie, sister of Irene Boxer Meyerowitz, Min Heft, mother of Rochelle Pinkovich and grandmother of Leon and Miriam, Jacob Gurevich, father of Elaine Charlotte, Mayor Schwartz, father of Tony Barenhout, Lucille Bricker, mother of Marilyn Pearl, Philip Bell, father of Lynn Pollock, grandfather of Debbie Pollock and Neil Pollock, and great-grandfather of Benny Pollock. And also, for today, from One More Candle, we remember Moshe Blachfeder, Zichronam Livracha, all of blessed memory. Mourner's Kaddish again is on page 46. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah. Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam U'Le'omei Amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei Dekudsha Brichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata tamiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, B'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. A big thanks again to the team, Rabbi Nibal Mas, Leslie Emery, Marvin Polanski, Bill Weissman, and especially to all of you. Thank you for celebrating Shabbat morning with us. Now let's conclude. Page 47, Adon Olam.
Yep.
I was thinking this one. I know you like it.
Okay. Sol Zim. Adon Olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה לתפארה, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, והוא אחד, ואין שני, להמשילו, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, בצור חבלים, בצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, בין הכוסים ויום אקרא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, בידו אבקד רוחי, בתשע והעירה, ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being there.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.